Hi, We Read Bookers. I am reviewing Dead Wake by Erik Larson. Erik Larson has written a lot of historical books. He's very well known for it, whether it's about Whitey Bulger or some World War II historical stuff. He's just a very well-known historical guy. This is the first book I've read by him, and I don't have a lot of interest in ships or when they sink, and I didn't know a whole lot about the Lusitania before I read this. I think I was on Reddit and it was Our Books, and they were talking about what are like the most talked about books this year, and this popped up, and I was like, I need to read more nonfiction, so popped this sucker in my e-reader, and now I'm gonna review it. For those who don't know, the Lusitania is basically the sinking of a British ocean liner that also was carrying American passengers and quite a few other nationalities back in World War I. And the sinking of this ship by a German submarine was the start of America. Basically, it catapulted America into World War I, and before that we were very neutral, trying to stay that way pretty hard. And so it was a very interesting event in history, and what I really liked about this book is it felt a little Titanic-y. Not so much the romance part, but like the leading up to everything and like the anticipation of like you know what's gonna happen but you don't know how it all happened. I think Erik Larson does a really good job of making historical events that are interesting but also kind of boring interesting, if that makes any sense. I really enjoyed about this. I've heard a little bit about the Lusitania before. I knew what its significance was in history, but I just didn't know like the depth of like the sinking and how many people died and how many children died. And as sad and terrible as all that is, what I found the most interesting was reading about the U-boat, the German U-boat that sunk the Lusitania. And what was really cool about this book is that Erik Larson switches chapters between the passengers of the Lusitania and the passengers of the U-boat, and Krieger, some German name, is the guy that was leading the U-boat that decided to sink the Lusitania, and the controversy of if he actually knew that it was a passenger liner and if he just didn't care. There's very mixed historical facts on that. Krieger says that he knew or he didn't know until afterwards and he was horrified, and then other people like his girlfriend and stuff say, oh yeah, he knew. So very interesting there. It was such an interesting book to me because he really breaks it down like second to minute, like second by second, of like how if one slight thing had happened differently, timing-wise, like this never would have happened. Like there was a delay in getting the ship off in New York, someone was late, and so there was like that 10-minute lapse there where it's like, okay, maybe they wouldn't have seen him. The weather was like perfect that day, it was super sunny, the sea was calm. If it wasn't, if the fog had stuck around a little longer, the Lusitania might never have sunk and we could have had a very different world. I think America, of course, would still have gone to war because we just can't help ourselves, but it might have happened a lot later, and without having to have so many people under 18 die, like so many kids died. And Erik Larson mentions how they documented the death of the passengers afterwards, how they had to number the bodies, like body 1, body 50, body 118, and he describes like the faces of them, and it kind of morbid but really interesting too, and just how each passenger, like the ones that survived, talk about their experience. I can tell you the most scary thing about a shipwreck, especially when you have like the one of like a Titanic or a Lusitania size, is the smokestacks. When they're going under, there was like 3 or 4 people that survived that had an account of them being sucked into the tubes, and then because of a release in pressure being shot back out into the ocean covered in soot. And like, I can't imagine anything more terrifying than like you have your life jacket on, the waters isn't freezing, it's calm, it's a sunny day, you're like, I can survive this, and then you get sucked down miles down into the ocean, into a funnel, and you think you're gonna die, you're drowning, you're choking on soot and water, and then you just get shot back up into reality and life, and like, horrifying. Not my choice of ways to go. I mean, my god, if I had to go on a shipwreck, not that way. Frightening. But he goes into depth of like what was on board. There was some Dickens novels that were like first editions, like he had made notes in them. It was for A Christmas Carol, I believe, and those sunk, went straight to the bottom. The guy couldn't save them. This other guy, speaking of books, of course this like sticks with me because I love books so much, but this other guy was writing like a 7 years he was working on this novel, and he had all the pages with him, and it was his only copy, and did not make it. That book did not make it. I can't remember if he made it, but I feel like if he did make it, he would want to die because 7 years of his life was just wasted into the ocean. Overall, I mean, there was lots of little interesting stories in there that really fascinated me and stuck with me. I definitely know a lot more about it now than I ever thought I would want to. And I'm definitely going to read more of Erik Larson's books. I know when I worked at the bookstore for a few years there, I would sell a ton of his books. The historical junkies just loved him, and I just never got around to it. And reviews soon, because I'm reading quite a bit this year, and I'm going to not be choosy in my reviews. I think I'm just going to try to start just as soon as I finish a book, review it the next day. So hopefully you'll see more of my face.